God, you call me by my name. The love you give me, I just
Hello
can't
everybody,
deny.
welcome to another episode of the Beloved channel. My name is Loise Kiiri and I am back again with my long lost co-host. He will tell us where he has been, but yeah, if you are new here, welcome. If you are returning, thank you so much for coming back to watch this channel. So my co-host, where have you been?
I've been here, there, everywhere, around the city, out of town.
Like the prodigal son.
Like the prodigal son. I found my way back. But nafurahia kukua hapa. I'm back and yeah, let's do this. Today we have a very wonderful video for you guys.
Yeah.
Na tunajua mtabarikiwa.
Well, we're glad that you're back, honey.
Well, thank you.
And for those who don't know this is my husband for the new subscribers. And of course, he's not wearing his ring. He was going to show his ring.
I was going to show it.
So where is it?
It's actually over there. I see it.
Why did you take it off?
It's because I was cutting the fruits and washing the dishes.
And you went to work like this. Were you walking like this to show you're single?
They know, everyone knows I'm a married man.
Yeah. I'm just joking, guys. I'm just joking. I'm just trying to give him a hard time. But so we actually wanted to just talk about Bible stories that really amaze us. We have found a few that not a lot of people know about them, but we find them to be so profound. Do you want to go ahead and start, or do you want me to start?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. So for me, it's actually when I was reading the Bible, the story of David, I found it to be a very, very good story. Like his whole life, everything that happened to him. And so just to give you a little bit of context, when you read the story of Solomon, he said that in his prayer thanking God, he tells God, thank you for allowing me to build this temple for you. And he says that I know my father David wanted to build it, but he could never be able to build it because during his kingship, he fought a lot of wars. So that is the reason why David could not even build a temple for God, because he was always fighting. Like he was fighting every nation. He was a mighty warrior. So back to the story of David. Now that you know most of his kingship, from the moment he was fighting with Saul to the moment he died, he was just always fighting nations, acquiring wealth. And because whenever they went to fight, they would just take, all the wealth.
The plunder.
Yeah, the plunder, the animals, the gold, everything. So anyway, so this one time he was fighting the Philistines, right? And he had a stronghold, and they had a stronghold in Bethlehem, right? They had made a fort there, and he was in a cave. And so he had a group of 30 mighty soldiers. Those guys were amazing. Like they were the best of the best. Like I want to call them like the Navy SEALs. And then out of those 30, there was 3. And then those 3 were the best of the best of the best, like the 0.11%. So they came to visit him while he was there at the stronghold, like the fort they had made, like the place they had conquered. And they were trying to conquer this other place where the Philistines were. The other place was Bethlehem, where Jesus was born. So...
And you know your word.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Jesus. I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, so they came to him, the 3 of them, who were the best of the best, the 0.11%. And so he said, like he just said longingly, he said, man, I wish I could drink from the well at the gate of Bethlehem. I could drink the water from the well at the gate of Bethlehem. He was just longing. He said, man, I really wish I could drink that water.
He was thirsty.
Yeah,
they had fought like the whole day.
They were not even fighting. So he had... Imagine there are 2 people who are fighting, right?
But I'm asking these questions for someone who has not read the story.
For a friend.
For a friend.
Yeah, so they had a stronghold, like they had conquered a fort, right? Like they had this city, and then the Philistines had another city, Bethlehem. They were close to each other. And so he was in a cave. So they were like, when people fighting, sometimes they just take a break. They're like, we want to see who will act fast. So he was there and they were here. So no one is attacking anyone. But Bethlehem has a well, and the well has some nice water, nice cold water. If you've ever drunk from a well, it's really nice and cold, like from a fridge. For those of you who have never drunk, now you know. It's very cold and very nice. And if you drink from a well with a lot of salt, you get brown teeth.
Because of the
fluoride. Yeah. Yeah, fluoride is the what makes your teeth white. But if you take too much of it, it makes your teeth brown.
Yeah.
Professor. Anyways, back to the story. So he said longingly, man, I wish I could drink some water from that well. You know, he did not say to them, he was just thinking in his thoughts and say that. So the three, the best of the best of the best, they had him. They're like, man, you know, our King David would really love to drink some water from the well. They went to Bethlehem. Now remember, there's soldiers. Like they have the city on lockdown. They have the whole city. The Bible doesn't say how many they were, but just think about it. If you have conquered the city, you probably have a lot of soldiers there. And then you are fighting David on the other hand, who is known to be a really serious warrior fighter. Man, those three guys, they went down there. They were able to break through the wall of soldiers who were there. They got into the city. They took water from the well. Then they came out again and Watandika, they beat them and broke through again and took it to David.
Wow.
You know, just let that sink for a second. Yeah. Like they did. They went and they broke through a whole garrison of soldiers. Yeah. Like they went in there, got the water and took it back to him. And so when they brought him the water, they said, hey, King, we heard you talking about the water. Here's the water. Maze, he was amazed. He's like, you guys did this for me? He said, I cannot even drink this. So he took the water, he poured it on the ground and dedicated it to God and said, God, I'm pouring this water as a sacrifice, as a dedication to you. For this men who sacrificed their lives, they could have died because, you know, it's three men against hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Who knows? They sacrificed their lives just to bring me this water. I'm not even worthy to drink it. So he dedicated it to God. And so this story tells me a lot. You're supposed to say, wow.
You should have waited for me to say, well, okay. Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that awesome?
Know what? I'm sorry. I'm just carried away by, I'm just taken away by the story. It's so profound. Like, it's such a wonderful story. The fact that they risked their lives to go and get that water. And then, how loyal are they? The fact that David did not even send them, he just wished, he longed he could drink the water from Bethlehem. Was it Bethlehem?
Yeah, the well at the gate of Bethlehem.
Yeah. But then they took the initiative to just go and, you know, get the water for him. It just shows loyalty, first of all. And then the fact that David, he could have chosen to take that water and drink it, but he poured it on the ground, telling God, God, I'm giving this, I'm sacrificing this, you know, I can't even take this as a sacrifice. I can't even drink it. I'm giving it to the Lord. And I'm now just thinking, you know how many times like someone has come and they just bless you. They tell you, hey, take $50, you know. I just want to be a blessing to you. How many times do you take it and you do you take it to church and say, God, you know what? You touched this person to give me this $50. I'm giving it back to you. I'm not even going to touch it. I'm not even going to do shopping. You know, I'll just give it back to you. Like, how many times do you ever do that, you know?
Well, someone give me $50 and try me, guys. Try me. My WhatsApp now. We'll put my Zelle here. Try me and see.
But how will they know you have given that $50 to the Lord?
Trust me, guys. Look how trustworthy I look.
You look very trustworthy.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. And even more so, I think for me, I found it amazing that David had such powerful men that it takes 3 men to conquer a whole army.
3 men.
3 men. Human. They're not like angels. They're or
like
superhuman being. You know, the Bible has a lot of like people with amazing powers. They were not any people with any amazing. They were just regular people, and they were able to break through a fort of a garrison of many soldiers. So that in itself is just amazing to me. So the few lessons that I learned from there, and I'll try and summarize them. So first of all, we know the story of David and and Goliath, but like I said, his kingship was just a lot of wars, and he won all of them. Like, of course, he lost a few, but he won all of them. He was known to be a great fight, a great warrior, and he was winning all the wars. But now when you dig deeper, you realize why he was winning all the wars. He had this men behind him who were really, really good fighters, who were very loyal to him. They had given up everything for him. Like, if you read the story, the things they did were amazing. They did amazing things, those men. And, from what I learned from that, it just goes to show that you need, God blessed him with those people. He put those people in his life for him to be able to become a great king. He was a great king, not just because of who he was as a friend of God, but because God gave him victory. But he would never have fought those wars by himself. He needed
people to help him.
He needed people. And especially he needed those 30 men who were out of hundreds of thousands of soldiers. He had like a group of 30 guys who were mercenaries. And so, like my wife said, the fact that David was so touched by what they did that he could not even drink that water, he's like, this is too precious. So it's just water. But when he knew what they had done to get that water, it was more than water. He describes it as, this is like it's more like blood. It's like their sacrifice. Pretty much they could have died. This is like, now it's a representation of like blood, yani, is like, this is their lives. Pretty much this water now represents their lives. And he's like, I'm not even worthy to drink of this. I'll just give it to God. And it just shows you the type of man he was. When the Bible says that David was a friend of God, it's things like those, when you hear stories like those, or when you read stories like those, you're like, wow, now I see. Because like you said, very few people you would gorge that, and you're like, hey, more.
Are you about to give me some more?
I know, but he was like, man, these guys could have died. They sacrificed for me, so I'll just give this as a sacrifice to the Lord. It's worth too much. It's worth their lives. It represents their lives. And he was a great man for doing that. And then the fact that even those guys themselves, they were like, so that is one of the lessons I learned from that about David himself, his character and who he was as a man. And then now to the soldiers, like, they could have died.
Yeah.
All for water, right? They were, just imagine you are the best of the best of the best in your country, like the 0.001. Like, out of the thousands of men in that country, they were the best. 3 of them. They went and fought. We don't know how many there were. Maybe there were hundreds. There were a lot of soldiers holding down one fort. They pretty much sacrificed their life just for their king to get him some water. And that just shows you the type of loyalty they had and the type of love they had for their king, right? And for people to do something like that, you have to be worthy of it. And that just tells us that David, as a man, his men admired him. The Bible tells of stories when he went to war, and he came back and people started singing, Solomon has killed
1,000, but David has killed.
David has killed tens of thousands. So that's another clue that David was just a fighter. He was just a fighter. People loved him.
He was good. He
was a good leader.
Yeah.
He was not just a man after God's heart. He was a good leader. And so for them to do that, they really believed in him. They really loved him. And it just makes, if I can bring it back now to us, like, can people, and it's not like we are here to please anyone, but have you brought value, or have you brought love, or have you brought something so good that someone can look at you and say, man, that person has changed my life. Like, I can do so much for them,
That's a good one, honey.
It is, eh?
Yeah. Jesus.
It's Jesus, Like, let's not even take it too far. Just bring it back to your family, to the people who are really close to you. Because the world is different now than it was then. Not everyone is a leader, so we might not necessarily be in a position to inspire people. But the people around you, the people who care about you, can they say that about you? Can they be like, man, Loise Maze is such an amazing person. Like, she has done so much for me. I would do this for her, And it just makes me look at my relationships with my wife, with my kids, and it just makes me think about that and makes me to be that kind of person. And I think that's what the Bible is. It's stories of these people and people who did this, but the way it relates to us is like you sieve it down from that big picture. You sieve it down all the way to your life, and you see like how it applies to you and how you can implement it. And that was a beautiful lesson. And so that story, I find it very amazing.
That's an amazing story, and I also like how you broke it down,
Oh,
and also the lessons that you have learned from that story.
Yes.
That's amazing. And I also wanted to add and say,
no, there's nothing to add. It is done. I have done it. I have closed the whole. Yes, I think I'm kidding.
Actually, I've
What
even
do you want to
forgotten.
add?
I've forgotten what I wanted to add.
You wanted to say, babe, that point you have said. Hey,
it's an amazing.
that was a good point. I will repeat it.
But that's what I just told you. As soon as you finished telling the story, I told you that.
Yeah.
Or you want me to tell you that again?
Whichever way the Lord
Honey,
leads
let
you.
me tell you, that story was so amazing.
Thank you,
Even the way you
thank you.
told it. Let me tell you, the revelation that you give us.
Jesus.
What was I going to say? I was gonna say, now I remember what I was gonna say. You know what I learned from that story? That a sacrifice does not have to be, like when you're sacrificing something unto the Lord, it doesn't have to be money or gold and silver. And then back then they did not have paper money, the coins. They did not have money, right? They used to have gold and silver, and that's what they used to exchange in, giving unto the Lord, right? But he didn't do that. He didn't say, oh, when I get home, I'm going to sacrifice, or I'm going to kill an animal and give unto the Lord. But he took that water and poured it on the ground as a sacrifice and give it unto the Lord. And what I learned is, what do you have? So sometimes God is not asking you, okay, give me money. That's the only sacrifice that you can give me. Because I feel like we have that notion where you think, oh, you can only sacrifice. Like when God tells you, give me something, you think money, the first thing, right?
Yeah.
But maybe you don't have the money. But what else can you give unto the Lord? You can give God your time. Right?
Yeah.
Let's say you tell God, you know what, today I'm going to wake up at 3 a.m. and pray. I'm giving you this 1 hour, I'm giving you this time as a sacrifice unto you, Lord, So I've learned that sometimes it's not just about money. Of course, money is a good thing, but you can sacrifice something else as well. If you don't have the money, you can even sacrifice your time, you can sacrifice your food. Like, you know how sometimes even like when you put some food, when I put some food for you on the plate, and sometimes maybe there's only 2 chicken left, you can sacrifice and say, you know what, my wife, you
take this.
Because
it is. It is because I think it's about what. It's like the story of the woman who, when Jesus was talking to his disciples, and these Pharisees came there with thousands of dollars and whatever, and this lady just came with a few coins, and he said that lady has given more than everyone else, and they could not understand. And he said, it's because that's all she had. So it's not really about, like you said, it's not really about money. It's what is it worth to you? Like if it's really special to you, when it's really special to you, then, and you're like, I'm letting this.
I'm laughing. No. I just remembered, when I was telling the example that I gave about chicken, like maybe if you have 2 pieces of chicken left, and you just say, my wife, just take this 2 chicken
and eat.
I'll eat the rest of the food. You take the chicken. You didn't say anything about it. You just went right into the passage because you don't want to sacrifice your 2 pieces of chicken.
My 2 pieces of chicken.
Yeah, but it's okay. You know, I was joking. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love my chicken. I will actually sacrifice the vegetables because those are even healthier.
You're not going to sacrifice the chicken. You're going to
Yeah,
sacrifice
because the chicken
vegetables.
is not good for
But
you.
you know what? Because we don't want you to eat the unhealthy food. You
Yeah.
keep the vegetables. We'll take the chicken.
Okay. All right. So what did you have to share?
Oh, I even forgot. Gosh, after you've told that story, how can I even outdo you? You know, that was a very good story, honey.
Thank
So
you. Thank you.
mine, it's just a short story that I'm going to read. It's in John 6, starting from verse 16 all the way to 21. It's a very short story. First, I'll read it, and then I'll ask you a few questions. Then I will try and explain where I'm coming from with this. It says, and I'm going to read the TPT translation,
What is that?
the Passion Translation.
TPT.
Passion Translation. Okay, this is what it says. After waiting until evening for Jesus to return, the disciples went down to the lake. But as darkness fell, he still hadn't returned. So the disciples got into a boat and headed across the lake to Capernaum. By now, a strong wind began to blow and was stirring up the waters. The disciples had rowed about halfway across the lake when all of a sudden they caught sight of Jesus walking on top of the waves, coming toward them. The disciples panicked, but Jesus called out to them, "Don't be afraid, you know who I am." They were relieved to take him in, and the moment Jesus stepped into the boat, they were instantly transported to the other side.
Wow.
So I know we've all read this story, like we all know about Jesus walking on the water. But once I read that story, like what do you get from that? What's the first thing that amazes you about the story?
I think it's Jesus walking on the water.
Okay. So, and we all know that story,
Yeah.
Jesus
Yeah.
walking on the water, right? But I guess the one part that we don't talk about most of the times is that last part where it says verse 21. They were relieved to take him in, and the moment Jesus stepped into the boat, they were instantly transported to the other side. And then you remember, I read verse 19, which said the disciples had rowed about halfway across the lake, which means they were not all the way at the end, right?
They were halfway there.
Yes, they were halfway there. But as soon as Jesus stepped into the boat, they were
arrived.
transported. They were transported to the other side. They arrived.
Wow.
So that's what really amazes me about this story. Of course, I'm amazed by the fact that Jesus walked on the water, but
So he did two miracles. He walked on the water and he somehow
big miracles. Exactly.
made them arrive there instantly.
Yeah. They arrived there instantly.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think what I get from this story is when Jesus comes into your life,
Hey.
when he steps into your life, but you have to allow, you see, what did it say? They were relieved to take him in. They allowed him to come in. He could have walked on the water, but wangesema, they would have said, you know what, Jesus, no, we're not going to let you in. But they did allow him to come in. And it's the same thing. As soon as you allow Jesus to come into your life, he changes things. And you get supernatural speed, like he changes things in your life.
And we all need supernatural speed.
Yeah.
I think that's the definition of grace and favor. It's just an unfair, it's an unfair advantage pretty much. Favor, which God gives us favor, it's an unfair advantage because.
Why do you say that?
Because, okay, when I say an unfair advantage, I mean it in the sense of unfair to the other people. They're like, man, I've been doing this for so many years. I've been trying this. I've been struggling here. Then all of a sudden you come and, it's so easy. So unfair compared maybe to other people to someone else. But that's what favor is. Like God, you don't deserve it. Like there's nothing you can do to deserve it.
And there's nothing you have, as you say, there's nothing really you have done for you to deserve that which the Lord has done.
And it doesn't mean you're special. It's just like you said, you welcome God into your heart, and you know, he just gives you a supernatural speed
and grace.
Yeah, and I think, you know, like I was saying, how the Bible relates to us is, you know, sometimes when you read stories like those, you're like, yeah, you know, yeah, Jesus, you know, sometimes in our minds we see like something that is so far, like, yeah, that cannot happen to me.
But it can only happen to someone else.
Yeah.
Or it can only happen to those people because they were disciples. Sometimes we think, oh, those are things that could only happen to the disciples because they walked with Jesus, which is not true.
Yeah, it can happen. It happens. Actually, let me just say this. It happens to people all the time. I can see it now. Now that I think of it, I can literally look back and see so many instances that we got like supernatural speed in that sense, in so many situations, you know, so many situations, right? And so it does happen. God does bless people, and you know, when He does bless you, you're like, that was God for sure.
Yeah.
Like there's no other explanation. There's really no other explanation.
Yeah.
You know, some people will call it luck or whatever, but we just call it blessings.
Yeah, we don't go by luck, we go by blessings. Nothing happens by luck. And you know, the other thing I was thinking, sometimes we have to ask the Lord, like you ask God, give me supernatural speed, you know, and I know I always talk about this man of God. His name is Joshua Selma. But he says, ask God to give you grace for speed.
Grace for
speed.
Grace for speed. And we'll elaborate on that. What does that mean?
So, pretty much what he means is, like, for example, let's just take the same example that you just gave, where you said let's say you've been trying to buy a house, like you've been trying to save up so that you can buy a house. But every time when you save up, something comes up, whereby that money is gone, then you're left with nothing, you're left with zero. You start from zero, and then you have to work towards it. So it has taken you so many years for you to accomplish, to buy, to accomplish that which you want, getting the house, right? But someone else, God gives them grace for speed, whereby they get a whole lot of money that they didn't even have, and they have exactly what they need to be able to purchase a house.
Grace for speed.
And it probably did not even take them a year. For you, you've been saving up for years and years, you know. So that's what I mean by grace for speed. That's just an example that I'm giving. Okay. But speed in so many ways, even in school. Let's say you're a student. You've been in school for maybe 5 years, university, and you're not graduating because you have to retake classes over and over again because you've been failing. But then someone else comes, and within 3 years they have graduated.
Just like that.
And then you hear the next thing they're even doing their master's or PhD.
Wow.
And they came and found you there. Oh, another one.
Hey, but wait, there's more.
There's more. Maybe you've been wanting the Lord to bless you with a spouse. And then your friend gets married before you, and they're probably younger than you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's grace for speed, right? But then again, I'm not trying to say that just because you're not married, the Lord has not given you grace for speed. It was just an example that I was giving. But God's timing is always perfect.
Many examples to elaborate.
Well, I don't want people to think that I'm trying to say that if you're not married, then that means that God has not given you the grace for speed. That was just an example, because God's timing is always perfect. But that's what he says. Ask God to give you grace for speed.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah,
I hope you've enjoyed those stories.
Yeah.
I would encourage you to go read that story of David. It's in the book of Samuel 23, from about verse 8. It's just a summary of the men of David's army. So that is in Samuel 23, around verse 8 going on forward.
And the story that I just read is John 6, verse 16 all the way to 21.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We hope you've been blessed.
I hope this was a blessing to you. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can also comment and tell us what story amazes you in the Bible. And we're not trying to say that these are the only 2 stories that are amazing in the Bible. Let me just tell you guys, the Bible has so many amazing stories. And you know, we were having that conversation, how we were saying, like, the Bible has so many amazing stories.
Yeah.
It's just that sometimes we feel like it's a burden to read the Word of God, to read the Bible, but it's full of stories. I can say
There's a
even
lot.
like maybe 70% of the Bible is just stories,
Yeah.
you know, example stories. It's an amazing book. It's an amazing Word of God. So take time and read the Word of God, and also share with us and tell us which story amazes you the most. But again, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.
I give my heart again, Jesus. I wanna go to Cali way. Close to your love again. I give my heart again, Jesus. I know